So, so guys, in today's training, the most sensitive, I would say, and the most important topic is all about confined space management. I would say confined space safety management. How you're gonna design a system, or what kind of SOPs must be there, or what kind of formats you're gonna use, and how the qualified people must be capable to work in such kind of enclosed or confined spaces. Of course, they are not designed for human occupancy. That's why they have limited entry and exit. And on the other side, uh, a lot of invisible hazards also are there, like toxic gases, colorless. We can take an example of H2S. So plenty of other like carbon monoxide and so many other gases are there. So what I mean is, in construction industry, from the design phase, like the moment you draw the drawing, like of any building, or even it's a road construction, or you are having a residential compound construction project, or Saudi Aramco residential construction projects, that means more sensitive requirements you need to fulfill. And if your company gonna have construction project from Royal Commission, might be in Jubail or in Yumbo, so they also have certain kind of construction standards which the suppliers or the vendors have to follow, especially all the contractors, whoever is there working with the Royal Commission. So the triangle is the same. We're going to discuss how to identify hazards, especially relevant to confined spaces. And most importantly, how we're going to control them. And what could be the role of we, the individuals. Because I always mention our safety, first of all, our responsibility. And if we don't care about our life, don't expect that somebody will be like taking care of you, because first of all you need to realize that your safety is first of all your responsibility. That is why the company management, they try hard to send you for trainings, and even though you are experienced, you have plenty of knowledge already, but still they send you because might be you're gonna get some of the new knowledge, kind of specs relevant to OSHA standards, which will be helping you actually at your project. And remember, every project have sometime 100 different processes or activities, and sometime maybe 1000. This all depends on the nature of the project. And according to the nature of the project, of course, you need to make sure your SOPs, your emergency response plans, your qualifications of your individuals, whoever is we selected for this particular project. And the project could be like, I repeat again, anywhere in the world. It's not like only in Saudi Arabia. Wherever your company would get the project, mostly the same SOPs you need to follow. So I just want to prepare a list of hazards of confined space. If you guys can participate through chat box. Can we just identify top 10 hazards related to confined spaces? Do you think this engulfment hazard is more terrible hazard related to confined space? Do you believe some electrical or mechanical hazards could also be there, like even slip, slips and fall, poor lighting, toxic gases? And I'm sure the things you as a professional are working there, of course, you have confined space permit requirements, like the work permit systems are there. So proactively, before even we start any of the activity or project, especially in the confined space, we try to do a lot of due diligence, a lot of studies through JSA, through joint site inspections, and a lot of technicalities through some experts, we try to consider, because human life have no alternative, no substitute actually. So first of all, our prime job is to make sure the hazard identification, whatever related to confined space, are identified accurately and with the technical magnitude of that hazard, rather than just you prepared a list of hazards, maybe more than 50. And your company would start asking, look, we don't need you because eliminating 50 hazards from one confined space, we need might be 5-10 days. So why don't you highlight only the hazards which can create some of the fatalities or kind of accidents or incidents? And that is why the safety professionals have certain pressures at the projects, because deadlines predefined, agreed via contractor and the customer contracts, through penalty clauses even, that if you will not complete this project within certain time frame, they'll start penalizing you, or maybe start putting some fine as well, which is already you agreed. And now the customer is more intelligent. They started asking the project insurance, and that insurance may be $10 million or maybe 1 million real, as per the nature of the project again. If customer is sensitive and they don't want to, blindly trust on the contractors, so they catch them through documentation. That is why I'm deeply discussing this important topic, because in shape of manholes, in shape of pipelines, excavated areas like deeper than 1.2 meter, and plenty of other activities. And even we have different tanks. And so in all areas, especially at the project side, consider if you have a construction project in more than 100 acres, and the project is the residential compound for Saudis, for Saudi Aramco officials, whatever. So you can't even imagine how many confined spaces would be there. And I'm sure because of your experience, a few of you must be involved and identifying even at the drawing easily how many confined spaces are there, what is the depth, what kind of design is there, how we gonna go inside, and before we go, what requirements proactively we need to fulfill. So guys, the prime concern is only to avoid any kind of incident, because the problem with the confined space is mostly, frequently, I would say, you don't get a second chance actually. Let me give you an example. There is a confined space, and one gentleman, the scientist, like a welder, he's doing welding, and on the other side, we have another scientist, might be the spray painter. And the both scientists, they are not familiar because they are not knowledgeable like you. And they have no idea sometimes what can go wrong via air formulation and mixing of flammable like LEL and UEL, and different kind of mixtures are there, maybe because of excessive oxygen or a lot of other toxic gases, especially the most dangerous one, the H2S, which I'll try to cover that topic as well, because this colorless gas still killing a lot of people, even though we have proactive approaches, a lot of SOPs, and people are well aware. The knowledge and technicalities and everything is there, but still a smallest mistake, like let's take an example. You have certain kind of sensors relevant to H2S, and just that sensor is not functioning the moment you are working in the confined space, or might be before even you decided, and that typical time might be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and it's all over. And sometimes we misguided, with this misconception, like if H2S is like only 2 ppm, let's take an example, or even below 10 ppm. Sometimes we misjudge, might be that was only the starting point of H2S, and later on it is going to be accelerated, and a lot of incident happening because what they believe is, oh, we have only 10 ppm, below 10 ppm, so nothing would go wrong. For 8 hours we can work, but what about during the work? What if you still working more than 2 hours in a confined space, which is of course a violation of especially OSHA and Saudi Aramco standards in Saudi Arabia especially. So I hope it will giving you a food for thought how we are going to deal such kind of sensitive places, which is not designed, of course, for human occupancy. And you know, how many professions sometimes we hire? We have CSE supervisor, we have work permit receivers, work permit issuers, we get standby man, we have plenty of other qualified people as per the nature of the project, but still they are human, right? That is why I already started one of the research which I'm going to share with all of you. What is going to happen within next 50 years? How are we going to be managing this safety segments, you know, at our project remotely or and through artificial intelligence or robotic technologies? How that industry will be eliminating, you know, the human capital, especially from the high hazardous activities. And drastically, the research I started probably 5 or 6 months earlier. And every day there is something new, every day. Like Saudi Aramco, you just check their technical standards and the technologies they are adopting, the latest one, just to lead the market and keep their people safe at the site. And they have open budget, you know, proactively they try their level best instead of relying on the human, intentional or unintentional errors, I would say. Let me share in one of my project in Michigan State, USA. The client, you know, he was having a simple requirement that we are going to buy some of the plastic cup manufacturing machines. And we don't want to see any hand injuries, any kind of head injuries. We don't want to see even a suicide attempt near to that machine. So what we really want is, as per the international safety standards, you guys go to Michigan and, you know, with this manufacturer, stay there and make sure they don't miss any safety feature or safety factor, including sensors, including safety devices, or plenty of other integration through mechanical, electrical, IT, and software management, you know, through these machines. And even these machines can be maintained remotely as well. Like if there is any error and nobody is capable to correct it or to maintain it, automatically, you know, the USA officials, they'll, while sitting in the USA, they'll be correcting that machine, you know, through their certain kind of softwares, and they have full rights for that. And that is why their business is evergreen, you know. So safety required sometime open budget if we have ethical intention, you know, not to penalize legally or not to kill any human at our project site. Then we have to think about 360-degree, I would say, not to leaving even the smallest factor which can destroy overall the process. And at the end, one person, as I mentioned earlier, killing one person, killing the whole humanity. And whenever somebody is dying, they are unable to understand the technical variables, you know. Might be simultaneous operations are going on and nobody knows what can go wrong in next 5 minutes, or maybe a one small ignorance by the authorized gas tester, I would say. And within these few minutes, it's all over. And what about the hazard of suffocation and, you know, plenty of other toxic gases like carbon monoxide. That is why OSHA predefined all the standards through their research, and why Aramco love to follow their American standards, because they trust they are based on real case studies, and they have proactive research based methodologies and procedures and technical knowledge published globally, especially for the 50 states of USA. And on the other side, they are encouraging, wherever American customers are working, they are encouraging to the contractors, please follow OSHA regulations. And that is why we have more positive influence. If that American brands are not there, or on the other side, if Saudi Aramco, God forbid, not serious for this particular safety segment, more disasters we're going to see. Even though proactively it's a red zone, they take a lot of safety measures, but still accidents are happening. And the biggest challenge, what we all are facing, even to ensure zero accident club. Writing on our safety policy is quite easy. Everybody can prepare a policy and mention, our slogan, our dream, our objective, our target is 0% accident within our companies, especially at our project sites, And these projects might be, you have on different, like more than 50 different locations. And sometimes the management, if they are not committed, or they are totally relying on contractor, or contractor, unfortunately, sometimes mostly relying on the client side, that they should give us care, because we are doing job at their side. So first of all, they should give us a safe haven, by isolation, by lockout tagout, and make sure there isn't any chance of accidental startup of any sort of machines, or any electrical energy, or even different kind of energies. Could be hydraulic, pneumatic, spring loaded, even toxic gases. That's why the most important controls for confined space we use, I hope you have an idea, the disconnection and blinding, especially for the confined space. And why we do all these things proactively, just to keep our people safe, and to make sure our business is not going to be penalized, legally, and our brand value, our business continuity shouldn't be affected, actually, because at the end, business means you are there to earn some profit, but that net profit does not mean by killing people you have to earn, by damaging the environment, by damaging the assets of your customers, you are trying to earn that money. That's not acceptable, actually. Or creating more toxic gases in the air because of your company operations, because you didn't consider all these factors or manage the way it should be. So guys, this 1926.21 clearly mentioned, especially B6I, all employees required to enter into confined space or enclosed space shall be instructed. And remember, wherever you see the word shall, that means it became mandatory, zero tolerance requirement. You can't ignore that word, because even though every word is important, but wherever you see the word shall, that means the standard, the OSHA, they are putting more stress on it, that please don't ignore it, actually. That is why they clearly mentioned all employees. And that employee could be the general manager or the president, no discrimination. That is why sometimes I say, please hire this standby man, the confident one, the bold one, who can stop even Saudi Aramco officials as well. Any government regulatory bodies even, he must be capable to stop them. Why you want to go there? Why you are crossing red line, of our project? Because your name is not in the project list and you are not supposed to visit. And if you truly want to visit and you are relevant to the project, then fill the CSE log sheet and make sure you sign it. You mention your time in, time out, and the clearly your purpose, why you are going inside. So I repeat again, all employees required to enter into the confined space or enclosed spaces shall be instructed as to the nature of the hazards involved. It's not like copy paste always. That is the same project have, all projects have same kind of hazards every time. Let me give you an example. Sometime I mentioned clearly, if we follow blindly all the American standards, sometime it can also create some disasters, because American conditions and Saudi Arabian conditions are entirely different. The humidity level, the temperature level, and plenty of other factors. Even the carbon footprint, the level in Saudi Arabia is entirely different, and in America, of course, it's entirely again different. Because they have more industries but no sandstones actually. So I hope you got the point. Sometime it's not like always to follow 100% all the standards, but make sure they are suitable as per the nature and the condition of your project location, I would say. And accordingly, we need to make sure to take some precautions, use of protected and emergency equipment. I hope you all understand all. It's not like a rocket science what we are discussing, but why I'm a little bit serious today, because the topic, I don't want to see anyone to be killed, to be very honest, especially whenever we sign a consulting project, we try our level best after completing this project. There shouldn't be any even, accident forever, because that's what we expect. That what we dream of, because we develop their systems as per international standards. We train them, we engage them, we motivate them, we change their mindset even, to create a better safety culture. And unfortunately, in the millions of safety professionals, we have a big pool of safety professionals, but trust me, more than 80% you will find they are not mind changers. They're not change ambassadors. They're not change agent. They can't bring the real-time improvement in every process, or to optimize that process, to make sure proactively the risk assessments is done of every activity or every equipment or tools or whatever related to that particular process. So I always motivate, especially to the safety managers, whenever they share, oh, nobody listens, nobody cares about safety. So I always encourage them, can you be more emotionally intelligent? Can you try to be a better convincer to sell your safety more product, with better approach actually? Because as a leader, if people are not eager to listen you, or they simply ignore your all instructions or the words, the way you are talking, that's first of all your failure as a safety leader. And when I share that straightforward reality to create some self-realization, sometimes they don't like me, to be very honest. Why I'm straightforward. Let me share one example. One of my friend, I would say, he was working in a corporate. I don't want to disclose the name of the company because that's our confidentiality requirement, which we already signed with different clients. But the safety manager of that company, he called me and asked, Ishtiaq, look, the company top management, they want the guy who died suddenly because of tripping or slipping, whatever, and suddenly he died at the site. But now the top management is talking about and stressing me to don't report this case and take this guy to the residential compound and show he slipped at the side, not at the side, at home, and it's a natural death. Natural in the sense, he slipped by himself because of his ignorance or negligence. Some water was there, slippery spaces were there. So I requested him, look, this is purely illegal. So you will be behind the bars because truth always prevails. Today or tomorrow, the truth will definitely come out of the box, or on the other side, Pandora box. And I hope you guys also have noted a lot of accidents we don't report, a lot of near misses we don't report, or injuries or kind of illness, because like we hide sometime our illness at the project site and put our life in danger just for the sake of might be 200 real or 500 real per day or even 500 real per hour. Money is not everything, right? So that is why legally more pressure, more realization is given to the employers. Like OSHA clearly mentioned, even though the OSHA standards mostly are for USA 50 states, but since I mentioned we have American brands in Saudi Arabia, so they love to follow OSHA regulations at our project site as well. And they are good enough, you get plenty of safety and security while during the design phase even. Like if you're designing a ladder or stairs or building fire exit route or kind of a door, so you will get plenty of straightforward informations and guidelines from OSHA. So legally, the employer shall comply with any regulations or apply to work in potentially dangerous areas. 1926.21B62, confined or enclosed space means any space having a limited means of egress, that means enter or exit, which is subject to accumulation of toxic and flammable contaminants. That is why certain projects, they have continuous gas monitoring. Sometimes they have after every 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Otherwise, minimum after every 2 hours. Or even after the lunch breaks or tea breaks or whenever they are going to re-enter. They again, try to find out the information related to toxic and flammable contaminants. And these toxic fumes basically are mostly hidden. I call them invisible enemies. Like coronavirus, why we all are struggling? Because this is invisible enemy. And we don't know how it is going to be inhaled or touching any surface or coming from airborne and catching us, and making us sick. Okay, just one coronavirus, the whole world is shredded up. And it's one biological hazard, by the way. Like we have plenty of other viruses, some are benefit to our body, some are dangerous to our body. But solutions, of course, the scientists are there, so they'll find out some of the solutions. That's we all know. So 1926.21B62 again mentioned, confined or enclosed space include but are not limited to storage, tanks, process vessels, wings, boilers, ventilation or exhaust ducts, sewers or underground utility vaults, tunnels, pipeline, and open top spaces more than 4 feet in depth, such as pits, tubes, vaults, and vessels. So, these red words you can consider kind of examples of confined spaces. So we as a safety professional or as a technical profession at a project, whatever profession we have, either we are electrical engineer or we are welder or crane operator or whosoever we are, even a janitor, even an office boy, he must be capable to identify how many confined spaces are there and these red zone areas, prohibited areas, is not going to cross. That is why we have safety induction before we allow anyone to enter at our project site. Now we have, because of this COVID, a lot of other restrictions. You know, sometimes I say this is a vaccination certificate. It became like, you know, more important than the visa of any country. Because all other documentation would not be beneficial until you have vaccination certificate. So look how the requirements and the new normal, new routines, new life. I never thought that I'll be managing, you know, hundreds of my projects online. I never thought, trust me, because people love to have some face-to-face interaction and, you know, group discussions and in my case, mostly I give some case studies and some group-based and individual project challenges, you know, during the training to make them practically more sound. But now because of COVID-19, we try our level best, but still the impact is not the way we were having face-to-face. So imagine if we don't change, if we don't update ourselves, or we don't improve our knowledge. When I still remember when I started using this March 2020, you know, the session online, especially for work permit receivers, you know, and even though the exam we were waiting after lockdown, we'll go for face-to-face exam, but this online training, even while using this Zoom app, I was not feeling confident how I'm going to use. I need to learn because this is a new challenge. So same way, we need to update ourselves. What other new hazards are coming? What other variables we need to consider? Imagine if you have 10 different processes in a confined space. How these processes can be dangerous for each other, you know, the correlation or interaction of these processes. Like I gave an example of welder and the painter or the spray painter. So flammable atmospheres is all about enriched oxygen atmospheres, vaporization of flammable liquids or byproduct work, even chemical reactions could be there, and concentrations of combustible dust. Like in one of the case study I noted, there was, because of H2S and some other toxic gases in refinery, you know, the upper layer of that pipeline, it created pyrophoric iron sulfide. That means a kind of a combustible dust layer. And one of the guy, the maintenance technician, just, you know, the key, his lock's key, you know, which he put actually on a certain location point. So that key just fell down and a little spark, and the area was already having concentration of like UEL and LEL through H2S through some other toxic fumes, you know. What I mean is a small spark and the whole refinery is over. So it's a teamwork, guys. It's not like only my safety manager can keep me safe. Yes, they are advisors, they are trainers, they are policy makers. Sometimes they give you every sort of guidelines, work instructions, but they can't ensure your safety. You know, I'm telling you, your safety basically is your, first of all, prime responsibilities. All others are just supporting you. So flammable atmosphere, so many other reasons, sometimes smoking, sometimes, you know, petrol, diesel, and H2S. And so because of these explosive conditions, and the biggest hazard, especially in the high hazardous industries like chemical industries or paper industries or oil and gas, the terrible hazard is explosion, explosion. That is the terrible hazard, I would say, the danger. Because a lot of energies we locked in different locations, and if something goes wrong, that is why a smallest mistake is not acceptable. And that is the reason the brands are paying a lot of huge packages to the reliability engineers, the maintenance engineers, the electrical engineers, the chemical engineers. Why they're paying a high level of salary, and why they're hiring 20 years experienced person or more than 15 years experience? Because they know only they can understand the variables, what can go wrong, how many other scientific points they need to understand to ensure. And that's why the latest technologies, monitoring systems, helping us a lot. Imagine 200 years before, how the H2S would be testing in a manhole, or in any confined space, how they could be testing this H2S. So trust me, we are in a blessed era. We have technology, we have gas monitors, we have certain kind of devices and sensors. So proactively, we can know what can go wrong, and accordingly, we can take some actions, right? So remember, this carbon monoxide is fatal 1000 ppm in air and dangerous at 200 ppm. Some of the information we need to remember. And these are, if you are working with Saudi Aramco, so you need to follow their standards first of all, because they are based on industry best practices as well as the 81 years experience of Saudi Aramco. And of course, they incorporated different international standards, including API, American Petroleum Institute standards, and some ISO, some ASTM, a lot of standards derived from OSHA even ILO is also helping us. So all these informations, like what is PL, time weight average, TLV, like threshold limit value, or short term, this exposure limit, or IDLH immediately changes to life or health, or even LEL. All informations we can get quite easily through our authorized gas tester. But imagine if he is a non-serious professional, or he just assumed that every time there isn't any problem. So why should I do gas testing again and again? Imagine if the calibration of that monitoring device is not good, like you have T40 rattler, or you have some even fixed gas monitors, but if they are not calibrated and giving you wrong readings, a huge disaster, right? So remember, carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas, slightly lighter than air, but chemical efficient, and also primary source, incomplete combustible of organic material and gasoline-fueled combustion engines. PL, we have 35, like permissible exposure limit. Below 35, I would say, it's a time weight average. TLV is 25 ppm, and on the other side, some other, but I would recommend at least you must remember PL and IDLH, and of course LEL, because every toxic gas have different values of, like LEL or UEL, and there is a combination of, like, sometimes all toxic gases are there. So now collectively we are checking what is the LEL value or UEL within that particular area or confined space. Like BIE is must be below 3.5%, or COHB must be like 20 ppm. So these values, at least your authorized gas tester must be familiar with that. And the moment he reports you back, there must be accuracy of data instead of just blindly sometimes filling the document and telling, all is done. Same like joint set inspection, same like work permit, tick, 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 sometime. And yes, we need a complete mechanism and SOPs, especially for the rescue operations, because emergency response is one of the difficult challenge in the confined spaces. So one picture is more louder than 1,000 words. So see how we try our level best to, and there must be some practice drills, because practice makes a man perfect. So if we don't conduct some rescue drills in case of emergency, it wouldn't be easy for even emergency response team are there. But unfortunately, because practice was not there, and they thought nothing has happened for the last 20 years, then what could happen in next 10 years? You are lucky for 20 years, but no guarantee of next 10 years or next 20 years. So see, some systems, how we pull them out, how we send them inside. It will help, sometime attached with the vehicle. Americans, they invent a lot of things by themselves and start manufacturing internally or through some other countries. And the purpose is only to keep their people safe. But still a lot of accidents are happening in America as well. So we need proper confined space testing, like 4 gas detectors, oxygen, flammability, carbon monoxide, and H2S. And what are the key critical issues? Training, procedures, and calibration. Remember, in confined space testing, the most important part is make sure you have proper trainings, and there are set of procedures easy to understand with accuracy. Technically, they must be accurate. I noted as an auditor, sometimes the procedures are not complying certain standards, and they just copy pasted from here and there and misfit to the relevant process or kind of activity even. Same way, the calibration, make sure not only internal, even third party or external, globally accredited laboratories, they must be calibrating your measuring equipments. 1910 252B protection of person. 1I, what is saying? A welder or helper working on platform, stuff, or a runway shall be protected against falling. And this may be accomplished by the use of railings, safety belts, lifelines, or some other. It's not like only the internal hazards, even external hazards you need to consider. Like imagine if rigging and lifting is going on. Imagine if heavy equipments are having some drive through near to your confined spaces. So how the soil can slip off, how the confined space can damage up. Engulfment hazard, I mentioned the number 1 hazard is engulfment also. Same way, we have arc welding rays, like suitable PPs we required. It's clearly mentioned as per 1910.252. So whatever activities you are performing there, could be cold work, could be hot work, but make sure accordingly you are having complete set of suitable appropriate PPs. Securing cylinder and machinery, especially relevant to welding and cutting processes being performed, any confined space, the gas cylinders and welding machines shall be left on the outside. And I'm sure you guys are following already all these things. Lifelines must be there, like where a welder must enter a confined space through a manhole or other small opening, means shall be provided for quickly removing him in case of emergency. So the in advance, the system must be inbuilt instead of relying, oh, we will arrange immediately if something were happen. And sometimes the project belong to the remote area that nobody is watching us, no customer, no Saudi Aramco officials. It's a purely remote area. And the company man of Saudi Aramco is very much friendly to me and he just trust. And this is another way how we are killing people. If Aramco guys are your friends, does not mean that you have to ignore safety regulations and killing your people. Even your safety would also be on stake, right? While delivering a lot of session to Saudi Aramco professionals, I clearly mentioned them, where were you before? The moment accident happened, then you guys are so much active. But where were you before actually? Later on, you come with a rude face, with some over-aggressive behavior, and you put a lot of pressure through your LPD, loss prevention divisions or department. But where they were before? So customers should also be realizing that he also have equal responsibility for safety of their indirect employees. The definition of employee is any person working directly or indirectly for your company. You have to consider him like your employee, so take care of him. I noted many contractors, they are very good safety, I would say, to keep safety of their employees, but for subcontractors, employees, they don't take them so much serious, to be very honest. But blame shame game is there. Because you need to realize whoever is came at your side now must be trained, must be proactively hazard recognizer, to ensure safety of every individual, or even first of all of himself. An attendant with a pre-planned rescue procedure stationed outside. That means the standby man observe the welder at all times, and there must be communication to each other. Could be face-to-face, rope system, or radio, or whatever, capable of putting rescue operations into effect. Warning signs must be clearly there, like welding operations are completed. The welder shall mark the hot metal or provide some other means of warning other workers. So let everybody be familiar. The welding operations are completed and now site is going to be reactivated, or we are giving site back to our customer. So some other factors are there, like 3 factors, go on the amount of considered to be welders, like be exposed, the dimensions of space, B is the number of welders, possible evaluation of hazardous fumes, and ultimately management responsible to ensure welders have proper protection and ventilation. Same way for oxygen fuel, gas welding and cutting. A1 says of 1910.253, mixtures of fuel gases and air or oxygen may be explosive and shall be guarded against. 8 was saying under no conditions shall settle in B utilized at a pressure in excess of 15 psi. 1910.253 A for oxygen fuel gas welding and cutting, workman in charge of the oxygen or fuel gas supply equipment including generators and oxygen or fuel gas distribution piping systems shall be instructed and judged or inspected or monitored by a competent person, but by their employers. And make sure the compressed gas cylinders, they are kept away from radiators and other sources of heat, stored in well protected, well ventilated, dry location at least 26.1 meter feet from highly combustible materials. Empty cylinders shall have their valves closed as well. There must be some operating procedures like valve protection. Cap shall not be used for lifting cylinders from one vertical position to another. Bars shall not be used under walls or wall protection. Caps to pry cylinders loose when frozen to the ground, or otherwise fix the use of when not boiling water is recommended. So there must be some operating procedures. Look at the pictures. How you need to tie up, what kind of truck must be there for internal transportation. Make sure you have the cylinders not having fixed hand wheels, shall have keys, handles, or even non-adjustable wrenches or valve steams while cylinders are in service. Fuel gas cylinders shall be placed with valve end up whenever they are in use. Liquefied gases shall be stored and shipped with the valve end up. So every procedure is giving us an indication that safety is a teamwork. Every individual have to realize and play his role here. And he must be the safety manager of his own area. And others should be supportive for that department or for that person or for that. So before connecting a regulator to a cylinder valve, the valve shall be opened slightly and closed immediately. The valve shall be opened while standing to one side of the outlet, never in front of it. Never crack a fuel gas cylinder valve near other welding work or near sparks, flame, or other possible sources of ignition. So after this today's session, I'll share this presentation with all of you. So whenever you get time, just keep refreshing your knowledge. Or whenever you are going to manage some of the compressed gas cylinders, just refresh at least at that point how you are going to manage settling cylinders, oxygen or nitrogen or some others. How the hose and the hose connections you need to manage, especially when parallel length of oxygen and settling hose are tapped together for convenience and to prevent tangling, not more than 4 inches. That means 10.2 centimeter out of 12 inches are covered by the tape. Same way, there must be safety assurance of consideration of safety and design, especially obtainable by choosing apparatus complying with the requirements for electric arc welding apparatus like NEMA EW1 1962, or some other standards are there like ANCI C32.2 or 1956 or underwriters laboratories UL listed, or even FM, this factory mutual trademarks are there. Workmen assigned to operate or maintain arc welding equipment shall be acquainted with the requirements of this section and with the 1910.252 A, B, and C of this part. Same way we have before starting operations, connections to be machine shall be checked to make. So proactively, you need to divide the process into 3 stages, like I mentioned on the day 1, before, during, and after of any process or activity, what we are going to do. Same instructions are there, but remember these cables with splices within 10 feet of the holder shall not be used. It's an important point which we need to remember, especially when we are having some arc welding and cutting. So the last topic of this training is all about excavations. Consider excavation is a process. So let's divide this process in 3 stages: before, during, and after. Before excavation, what you guys gonna do? Before starting excavation project, what will you do actually? What precautions you're gonna take? What documentation you'll make sure? What safety regulations you will try to follow before? I'm not talking about during or after. So I would appreciate if you can unmute your mic and give some your feedback. Otherwise, you can write in the chat box even if you, because I know sometimes you are at the project site and at night in training with me. So I don't want to bother you that to speak up. If you're willing to speak up, much better. Otherwise, in the chat box, you can reply. Before starting the excavation, what should we do? Like Dennis mentioned, check the type of soil. So that means we need somebody who's having some soil testing experience or some kind of technical education, you know. Yes, Ramnik, there must be gas test, underground cables or buried cables. Yes, Alan, absolutely true. It's kind of a proactive approach. Excellent, Ronaldo. This is very much important point. Identify all existing facilities. What is nearby? How many other buildings are there? What we have, you know, how our process, excavation process can affect to other buildings or other kind of soil, you know, and we know it's a soil sea everywhere, mostly in Saudi Arabia, especially in desert areas. So what else? Yes, there must be excavation checklist. Excellent point, mashallah. Romnik, we can say we need required PPs, you know, the appropriate and suitable PPs as per the nature of the project. So I totally agree that we need JSI, Joint Site Inspection. We need, I would say, the permit also for this particular project. We need cable detectors if hand digging is not possible or we believe is dangerous. So maybe cable detectors can be used. Or even, Rani, we use these metal detectors as well. Yes, pre-excavation checklist. There is an absolutely excellent point you highlighted. Pre-excavation checklist of work permit, JSA, HIP, hazard identification plan, and even ERP, you know, emergency response plan. And proactively, you need to submit to, you know, to your client. I mean, the project or the project manager of your client actually who will be reviewing, or maybe the safety department. Like in Aramco, they have PID, project inspection division, they have FPD, they have EPD, they have LPD. And yes, Alan, emergency equipment must also be there. And most importantly, the kind of engineering solutions which we are going to use, like shoring, benching, sloping. So all the materials or all proactively must be available, you know, instead of, oh, let's start excavation and then later on we'll buy everything because the red tape is there. I noted a lot of excavated areas and the protection is only red tape. Excellent. So before starting the process, proactively we need to consider all these things. Now, during, what we have to do during the process actually. During the process, what things matters a lot? Imagine you have backhoe. You are using heavy equipment, you know, for this excavation process. So how are you going to monitor them? How are you going to supervise them during the operation? And what level of technical, how now you must be having, you know. That is why I always encourage to the safety officials, if you are not technically sound, let's take an example of any process. Might be excavation, might be scaffolding, might be welding, might be cutting or grinding, whichever process is there. If you are not technically sound, no harm to discuss or get support and help by the relevant technical department or the technicians of that particular process. Because after all, you are supporting them to ensure their safety, Otherwise, the knowledge is quite open now. You can have a researching hobby, and as per the process list, you can evaluate in advance, before, during, and after, what we have to do for excavation process or any process in the world. So our concepts must be clear instead of, because it's hard to remember millions of words or millions of pages, So our concept must be clear, and wherever we face issue, we go research, we find information, we find. That's why we have pre-standardized SOPs, So, but if these SOPs are not updated, even that SOP could be a dangerous item, for that process. So what excavation hazards can be there? Like you already mentioned, a lot like underground cables, cave-in, the walls can collapse and meet together. Soil can be slip off, in other words. Toxic fumes, because you are going to play with nature. So nature can fire back. Remember that one. That is why we are almost have killed this planet, just getting more facilities. And now the consequences are more earthquake, global warming, and a lot of other issues. I hope you guys can notice of even in your own countries, like last in 2020, or maybe this year. This, the flood in Philippines or even in Kerala in India. Recently in China even. And reptiles and insects, sometimes at least they have same color like sand, So hard to find them. Sometimes snake, have same sand color. And it's yes, absolutely true. These hazards should also be considered. So remember, guys, excavating is one of the most hazardous construction operations. Most accidents occur in trenches, like 5 to 15 feet deep. And there is usually no warning before a cave-in. So it's a matter of life or death. So we must have protective system like shielding, shoring, and sloping or benching. But this is the responsibility of the employer. And look how, the cave-in hazard. Look another example. Inadequate protective system. Few examples. And sometimes we damn care what is soil classification or depth of cut or water content of soil even. Or changes due to weather and climate or other operations in the vicinity, Same way for shoring, like provides a framework to work and also uses wales, cross bracings and braces and other uprights and supports excavation walls. If you go to OSHA website, otherwise I'll show you one link or I will send through WhatsApp. And keep updated and keep watching some videos uploaded by OSHA at their site website. So it will give you an idea how excavation process must be managed and what can go wrong. You know, the genuine case studies are done actually. And sometimes they take some actions right after the accident. And once the investigation completed, they try to have a video like animated videos, and just for our guidance, what can go wrong. Same way we have some other American departments are also there. They also do the same thing like OSHA. So trenching, a trench shield must build around this work area. So the challenge is to keep our people safe. And 1 cubic meter of soil, do you know how much approximate weight? 1 cubic meter of soil? Approximate weight? Can you reply in the chat box? One cubic meter of soil, how much weight is there? No one, guys? Remember, approximately 260 pounds or 500 kg on the other side. Sorry, 260 kg. So I need to check because I told you, sometimes it's hard to remember a lot of information. But yes, we have standards. We can go back. Can you research on your mobile or laptop or wherever you are? Let's find the exact information, and it will also give us some practice, how to search relevant OSHA standards. Can you guys check 1 cubic meter of soil? How much weight? So here I got 1.7 tons or 1 ton even. So almost 1000 kg or yes, Vaini, absolutely right. So this is what we need, because no one can remember every sort of information. Yes, some key technical information we can remember. Even though we are trainers, regular our job is to train, but still we are human, right? So there must be some standards in our hand, so easily we can search and find out and update ourselves and accordingly take some proactive measures, before we start our project or processing. We have some hydraulic trench support, like using hydraulic jacks. Operator can easily drop the system into the hole once a place is. But in Saudi Arabia, mostly you will see shoring, Yes, Abdurrahman, you want to say something? Go ahead, Abdurrahman. Otherwise, in the chat box, you can. Okay, thank you. So remember, water is hazardous, because when water is present in an excavation, it is extremely hazardous to enter in different kind of because it will definitely weaken more and easy to slip off, easy to cave in for the soil, and the accumulation is quite because water will penetrate, water will make a space for sure. So remember, water is equal to cave in hazard, more easy, more frequently happening, because you never know. That's why geological studies, a lot of studies being done, especially by Saudi Aramco, before even they start any oil rig site or any gas rig or whatever. A lot of studies are there to make sure nothing will go wrong. So those workers must be protected from came-in. Note the water in the bottom of the trench. This is very dangerous condition. Hazardous atmosphere like oxygen, high combustible gases concentration, high levels of other hazardous substances must be considered. Again, we need an authorized gas tester. Means of egress like the stairway, ladder or ramp must be present in excavation data 4 or more feet deep and within 25 feet of the employees. Within 25 feet of the employees. So this ladder does not meet the requirement of the standard because the ladder should extend 3 feet above the excavation. Same way, this one, these two ladders which are lashed together are not an adequate means of egress. That means the shortcuts or temporary solutions, especially in excavation process, is not acceptable. Even in any process, I would say. So the ladder should extend 3 feet above the top of the excavation, and we don't work on that top. So let's take some examples of concrete and men's reconstruction. So we have general requirements 1926.701. No construction loads placed on concrete structures unless employer determines safe to do so. Person qualified in industrial design, structure capable of supporting loads. Especially I encourage to the companies, the moment you accept any building renovation projects, make sure you do a lot of studies, including asbestos fibers, building stability analysis, and make sure you realize the shelf life as per the BOQ of that particular building or project, because you are going to demolish few of the areas and going to renovate that building. But a lot of studies must be there before even you accept that project, I would say. And these studies must be with the owner of that building. Yes, guys, any problem? You're on actually your mic. Okay, so all rubber must be kept. Look at the pictures. It will, because might be you're involved already. Make sure you follow. In the BOQ, basically, all international standards, the specs, everything must be guided for each step, for each material, for everything relevant to that project in the BOQ. Each element must be highlighting based on which international standard you are going to buy this material or going to mix this material, whatever. The formulation, everything must be based on some standards. And if you don't benchmark international standards, that means the safety and the stability of this building would be unstable. So these are some of the pictures like post-tensioning operation, no employee except those essential to operations permitted behind the jack during tensioning operations, signs and barriers erected to limit employees access area during operations. So pre-stress slab and pre-stress slab unloaded, and even pre-stress slab loaded. Which one you believe is more balanced or more safer? And these, that is why we have civil engineers and a lot of construction staff is there, which we're gonna make sure, because they are the technical expert people. But you as a safety professional have to benchmark and verify either they are following some international standards, yes or no. But remember, no employee is over permitted to ride concrete buckets like this. We see a lot of silly things, especially in construction industry. But your company have a good name, fame in the market. Working under loads, no employee shall work under concrete buckets while bucket is being raised. Quite practical understanding you guys already must have. Any suspended load. Make sure you have right set of PPs. Bulk cement storage. So that means the storage process, the chemical storage process, the material, the mixing, every process and activity technically need to be ensured that there is some international standards benchmark to use in. And you discuss in advance with your customer, you agree all these standards even, because that is why the customer always try to hire a consultant, to keep watching you and evaluating every day that you are following BOQ and as per the purchase order, everything is being done, or as per the contract. Remember, they are also confined spaces, so lock and tag before entering, concrete mixing, loading, skip like 1 or 3 or larger, mechanical device to clear material, guardrail on each side of the skip. Make sure they are provided with pipes, suppose design 100% overload, compressed air hoses or pumping systems, positive fail-safe joint connectors must be there, prevent separation of sections, well pressurized. So pneumatic and hydraulic energies are quite common, especially in, or even mechanical energy and electrical energy also. So how many types of energies? Again, all need to be make sure you know how to isolate, you know how to lock and tag them. Power concrete towels should be like stop automatically when hand are released from control. So only qualified staff you need, an experienced one. Make sure you have safety devices required to prevent premature or accidental dumping. You can apply bull floats, like if handles could contact electrical conductors, they must be of the non-conductive type. Quite logical. So make sure not only this one, all moving parts. I repeat again, all moving parts must be guarded. Can be flywheels, can be belts, can be cutter, grinder, whatever. And PPs are so much important because sometimes employees, they are more focused to the work, but they have no idea how much toxic fumes and terrible dust they are inhaling. Lockout tagger procedures must be used before repair or maintenance. We all know. So cast in place concrete must be capable of supporting without failure. So all these things you can ensure as per ANCI A10.9 1983. So same way I told you, everything must be comparatively verifiable through some international standards. And there must be some drawings and plans, especially at the job site, and must include all revisions. Shoring and reshoring is also important, but make sure you have inspection prior to erection for conformance with framework drawings or damage shoring, equipment not used, shoring damage after erection immediately reinforce. So shoring and reshoring, seals round, rigid, or even capable of carrying the maximum intended load, base plates, shore heads, adjust with screws, and So the condition of your material must be good enough, and make sure they are not expired, because everything have a shelf life or kind of expiry date. Tied single post shores is all about designed and inspected by qualified engineer. Vertically aligned supplies to prevent misalignment and also make sure brace in two mutually perpendicular directional supplies. Each tire diagonally brace in same two directions. Two raising of shores after concrete poured. So I'm sure your construction team would be following all these things. Vertical slip forms. Rods are pipes on which jacks climb, designed for that purpose. No excessive distortion during jacking. Provided with scaffold where employees are required to pass. So 1926.703C vertical slip forms. Clearly, this diagram is highlighting how the jack rod and the jack and the yoke assembly and working deck of wheels, all parts, how they'll be functioning and supporting to each other. So vertical slip form operation, we need to make sure removal of form work. Remember guys, we should not remove any of the framework until employer determines concrete has gained sufficient strength to support its weight and superimposed loads. Because sometime might be they get a new project and now they want previous project or materials back in good condition and going to be reused. But haste makes waste sometimes. Flying forms, precast concrete, just pictures will give you some insights. Make sure you have tilt-up walls supported to prevent overturning and collapse. Lifting inserts capable of supporting towards the intended load. Lifting inserts in other than tilt-up members 4x the intended load. Lifting hardware 5x intended load. So intended load is important for everything, I would say, especially in construction. Not only in construction, even if you buy a chair. So the loading capacity of that chair even must be calculated. Imagine this chair is designed for 100 kg person, and if more than 100 is sitting there, what would happen? We all know. Only erectors under members being lifted. So lift slab operations, we need to follow some of the instructions, like employer must implement PE designs and plans include like instruction sketches, method of erection. You will see a lot of drawings, a lot of theories, a lot of guidelines related to materials, related to processes, activities, as well as even chemicals, whatever you are using for that particular. That's why we have plenty of drawings, instructions. So look at the lift slab operations. So lifting, rigging and lifting is one of the critical activity at the construction site. So make sure the jacks are designed so they will not lift or continue to lift if loaded beyond their rated capacity. Jacks synchronized or so that all points are within ½ inch of being level. Look at the example. We also have jack lifting units are there. Now we have more latest technologies, a lot of solutions are there in the market. Even overnight, the whole building is like in 10 days, China built a hospital. You remember the moment COVID was started in back in like December 2019 or something like that. Limited access zone shall be established whenever a masonry wall is being constructed. Make sure prior to start of construction, equal to height of wall plus 4 feet. Limited access zone must be there. Entire length of wall and also opposite scaffold side. Only masons allowed. So clear instructions must be there. Limited access zone. So limited access zone shall remain in place until wall is supported. If wall is over 8 feet tall, it must be braced unless adequately supported. Bracing must remain until permanent support structures are in place. I hope guys it will be